Let's please call the roll.
Commissioners Rahman,
Present.
Long,
Here.
Howell, Cavell, Charles,
Present.
Wypert,
Here.
Hoffman,
Present.
Gershenson as ex officio,
Correct. I know, it's like we're close. I like it. We're too
and
close.
Commissioner Markham.
Yes.
We've got a quorum.
All right, we have a quorum. Let's please all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Better.
Yeah, thank you.
Item 4 is approval of the minutes from the previous meeting. Motion, Commissioner Hoffman, supported by Commissioner Rahman. Not Long and Rahman. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, say nay. Minutes are approved. Next up is the approval of today's very lengthy agenda. Hopefully we can crank through this pretty quickly. Commissioner Rahman, supported by Commissioner Wypert. Let's prompt the vote on this. Does anybody have any additions or deletions to the agenda? No. Okay, let's prompt the vote.
Okay, we have 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay, thank you. Next up then, we have our first public comment. Is there's anyone from the public who cares to speak to this committee? Please let us know.
I would.
Yeah.
Okay, you have 3 minutes.
Might change my next
You
week.
just started here.
I'll tell you guys.
Swipe up.
Speak to it so you can do it.
Okay, go ahead. Tell us your name and.
My name is Monica Magnan, so good morning and thank you for the opportunity to be here and be heard today. I am currently a shelter leader at the Pet Adoption Center, and I just kind of want to talk to you just a little bit about why we're here today. Due to COVID, the shelter lost 12 inmates who worked for us for a number of years, 7 days a week. They were replaced once COVID was here and the inmates were returned to the jail by Sabre employees who also work 7 days a week. Currently, our 10 new employees equate to a maximum of 7 workers per day due to a 5-day workday week, time off, and etc. According to Dr. Pisano's shelter assessment, which was paid for and commissioned by the board itself, the shelter does not meet baseline staffing needs, and this is evidenced by the following. I'd like to take just a few minutes to recognize my fellow workers and their dedication to the animals that we serve. The first group of fellow workers are the shelter attendant cleaning crew, which you graciously approved and were hired in April of 2023. Following their names are overtime hours they have worked from April 2023 to August 2nd of 2023. Anoa Powell, 24 hours. April Kelly, 46 hours. Aubrey Musa, 50 hours. Dante Childs, 47 hours. Jared Nagel, 45 hours. Jenna Gotchka, 93 hours. Joshua Chappell, 28 hours. Tim Ziski, 102 hours. Lydia Mendez, 13 hours, who has since left her position at the shelter. Sherry Orr, who is the shelter leader, has worked 73 hours of overtime. That's a total of 521 hours since April of 2023. The second group of fellow workers are the upfront shelter attendant staff. Following their names are overtime hours worked since January of 2023. Adia Craves, 131. Casey Rowden, 76. Jenna Ortel, 141. Trisha Gogola, 88. Myself, 157. Shelley Gray, who is the shelter supervisor, 117, for a total of 710 hours of overtime. I'd also like to mention that Chief Joni Toole arrives 2 hours early, 5 days a week to assist in cleaning. As you can see, there's an immediate need for additional staff at the shelter. The current workload at the rate we are is just not sustainable. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Is there anybody else who, okay,
I'm Patricia Gogola. I also work at the shelter, which is why I'm here today. Again, thank you for having me and letting me speak. And thank you for Monica for providing numbers. I'm actually going to come at a more emotional angle. Those of us who work at the shelter are passionate animal lovers. We love and care for these animals like they are our own, and we love our jobs. While we love our jobs, we're having a very difficult time. Without the proper staff taking the best possible care of the animals, it's an almost impossible task. We do our best, but we know just how much better we can be. We can't do that though without being properly staffed. As Monica mentioned, the assessment, and as someone who is part of that committee who encouraged the assessment to take place, I have seen how much the shelter has accomplished for that assessment. Aside from one thing, more staff. It was recommended we needed more staff. The current staffing situation at the shelter, it's absolutely not sustainable for either the welfare of the animals or the employees. We know this is a significant ask from the county, but it's crucial. Thank you.
thank you very much. Is there anybody else that wants to address the board during public comment? Okay, seeing no one, I will close public comment at this time and move on to communications. We have one item, item 7A, IT Executive Summary, third quarter. I'll take a motion to receive and file. Commissioner Hoffman, supported by Commissioner Smith Charles. Let's prompt the vote, please. Anybody have any comments on the IT Executive Summary?
You have 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay, motion carries. That moves us on to item number 8A, under department recommendations, the IT Development Report, third quarter. Moved by Commissioner Smith Charles, supported by Commissioner Weipert. Is there anybody here to talk about this, or?
I can if there's questions.
Okay, yeah, come to the end of the table, introduce yourself, and we'll leave it open for any questions somebody might have.
Yeah, so Rod Davenport, CIO for IT. So my understanding is that we do these quarterly updates to the board for finance summary. So the dollars are basically the amount of time and money that we have spent in the previous quarter working on a variety of projects for the different departments. And then the plan summary is kind of a more detailed view of the same data.
Are there any highlights we should be made aware of in case we couldn't discern them ourselves out of the data?
So I'd say that things seem to be fairly status quo. Our number of projects that are on the red are a little higher than I'd like. So I think we're at about 82% green. We'd like to see that closer to 90. So we've had some technical issues. We've had some of the recent reorg that we did. I think it's been a little bit disruptive, but we've got plans to try to increase the throughput of IT overall as we move forward. So I don't think there's anything that's in an imminent state of crisis.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Seeing none, let's go ahead and prompt the vote.
You have 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Excellent. Motion carries. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Next up, item 8B, extensions of real and personal property assessment administration services for Oakland County communities. Moved by Commissioner Smith Charles, supported by Commissioner Hoffman. I believe we have, you wanna come to the end of the table? Introduce yourself and tell us anything we might wanna know about this.
Absolutely. I'm Michael Lohmeyer. I'm your equalization officer for the Oakland County Equalization Division. I'm before you today because I'm presenting the new Assessment Administration Division contract services to our 32 communities for the 2023 through 2025 years, starting July 1st through June 30th, 2025, for real property and personal property services. The contracts were updated, they were thoroughly reviewed and updated. Substantively, they're very similar from the last contracts you've seen, but we've added our responsibilities to be extremely transparent for what assessors are required to do by statute. So the language has been added, what we're required to do under General Property Tax Act. We want the public to see what we owe them as far as responsibility, so that's what we've added to the contract. We wanted to make sure everybody knew what our responsibilities are. And the contract has increased 4% for each one of those years on a real property and personal property basis. That's really the change that we've made. It's just really adding our responsibilities to the contract.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Hoffman?
I noticed the rates are different for different communities. Is it based on some communities you're required to do more work there, or they have based on the number of parcels? If they have a lot of parcels, the rate might be less per parcel. How does the rate fluctuate so much?
It's based on the diversity of the real property versus personal property count and the makeup of those parcels. Some are more residential heavy, and based on the complexity of the residential property, some are the values of the property takes size of the property takes a lot more complexity than maybe a different type of community. Commercial property, type of commercial property versus industrial property, so it's the makeup of the real property and makeup of the personal property in that area.
All right, thank you.
Good question.
Yeah, good question.
Commissioner Wypert?
Overall, 4%?
4%
Across the
even
board?
is what we increased it for each one of the communities per parcel count.
And in dealing with the community, I mean, the communities voluntarily pick Oakland County as their assessor.
Right.
Was there any
That's not
was there any pushback, or were the communities satisfied?
Not so far. I mean, when we present the contract to them, I've talked to a number of them, and we've kept them in line. Communication, we send communication out to them every month. They receive a communication from us, and we've been actually doing training with them to help them with their policy and procedures in different area like land divisions and things. So I haven't had any pushback yet, but once we get these contracts out, I'm actually encouraging them to reach out to us if they have questions or concerns, but so far we haven't had any pushback. I mean, we haven't had any kind of negative feedback.
Yeah, I know most of the community CBTs are satisfied.
Yeah, we've actually been increasing a lot of communication and services to them over the last year since I've been here, so I think so far I've heard only positive feedback.
Okay, I mean, it's not gonna be a surprise to them that you're keeping them in the loop that this is coming.
We've had so much communication since I've started working with Kyle, since I've been here. We've had a lot more increased communication with them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have a question for Mr. Lohmeyer?
Commissioner Markham,
Yes.
just from an administrative staff question, I know commissioners, as you are aware, we expedited our board process to make sure we could get this item onto the agenda today. We really appreciate Kyle Jen and Equalization's cooperation in getting all the answers we needed, but we did just want to make sure that the backup does indicate it, but we want to confirm that the executive's office and corporation counsel has reviewed this and is in support of it.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Keys. All right, with that, let's prompt the vote, please, on item 8B.
You have 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much. Next up is item 8C, acceptance from the Michigan Department of State Police for the fiscal year 2024 Secondary Road Patrol and Traffic Accident Prevention Program. Commissioner Long, supported by Commissioner Rahman. All right. We're trying to move quick here.
I know, she's like, good, we're going faster than she thought.
We just have the never-ending day.
Yes, we'll be back this afternoon, so.
Commissioner Cavell is now here. Okay, thank you. Okay, all right. for
All right,
winning.
so the state has changed the process for this grant a little bit this year. They have eliminated the need for an application and they've just forwarded an agreement with our allocation. It's pretty much the same as last year. It's at $723 higher. So we're continuing 1 sergeant and 7 deputy 2 positions along with some motor pool costs. So
Okay, good, here for your support. Anybody have any questions about this? Keep those patrol officers on the road, I guess, with the state money, great. All right, if nobody has any questions or comments, let's prompt the vote.
You have 8 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, motion carries, thank you. Thank you for your support. Next up is item 8D, sponsorship of the 2023 Pontiac Regional Chamber Youth Internship and Engineering Program. Take a motion.
This one.
Commissioner Gershenson, supported by Commissioner Hoffman, did I see your name? Okay.
And Commissioner Markham, Commissioner Powell did hope to be here in person for these, but unfortunately wasn't able to, so she'll be able to answer any questions, of course, at full board. But this is $7,500 for a sponsorship for the Pontiac Regional Chamber Youth Internship and Engineering Program. You may remember through ARPA dollars, there was an effort in the county to increase this funding throughout the county. This is going to be specific to the Pontiac School District.
That one's 7,500, it's the next.
And this is special projects out of the
Correct.
Board of Commissioners Special Projects Fund, $7,500.
Okay.
That's good. And this is a one-time deal.
One
right?
time, yep.
Yep,
Okay.
and then the next one's 15.
Questions, anybody?
No.
Okay. Then let's go ahead and prompt the vote.
You have 8 yeas, 0 nays.
The next one's
Okay, motion
15,000,
carries.
right?
Next up is item 8E, sponsorship of Pontiac Youth Assistance after-school and summer activities. Motion by Commissioner Smith Charles,
That was 15.
Commissioner Weipert
And
supporting.
this one's 10, right?
And this is a similar request of $15,000, go to a local nonprofit to assist the Pontiac Public
Next one's
Schools
10,000.
in their after-school and summer activities program. They requested funding to allow them to, for the first year, which will set them up to then raise funding for the next 4 years. And so they've identified 3 other funding sources in the backup material, and this will again just be a one-time expense to get them through the first year.
Again, from Commissioner Special Projects.
Yes.
Okay. Did you have a question, Commissioner Ramos?
So I know I sound like a broken record on this. I just, I think most people know where I'm gonna come from on this. I just wanna be careful that it isn't all allocated to the same district over and over again. I'm fully in support of it. I appreciate, what Commissioner Powell's doing, and I'm happy to stand by her on this. But, just today alone, we're talking 22.5, for just today. And that's in addition to everything that's been approved so far from January through now, so. And that's the only thing I just want to be cognizant of, but other than that.
One thing I will say is Commissioner Powell is very good about bringing projects forward for special projects, and I know I'm not as good at it as she is.
We need to.
But yeah, it's a point well taken, and it's very important that everybody understands these are one-time deals. It's not something that's gonna be ongoing unless, as in this case, there are other funding sources for being planned for the future. So Commissioner Smith Charles, and then Commissioner Gershenson.
Yeah, not germane to AE, but specific to the special projects, I was grateful that Mike took time with me a couple weeks ago. We had like a 30-minute, almost training, if you will, on just some of what it takes to spin up these special projects, because sadly, I've inquired with all of my municipalities, except for Lathrop, who's been a little hard for me to reach. Shout out to Lathrop Village if you're listening. But it was like pulling teeth just to get some of the information from the municipality, and there's like up to like an 8-week turnaround for our departments to do their vetting. And I'm like, oh, great, now we're talking October. So if our communities are listening, whether you're a nonprofit or whatever, help us help you, is all I can say.
That's a really good point. Commissioner Gershenson and then Commissioner Cavell.
Yeah, I just have to say that any commissioner can come forward. So if some commissioners are coming forward more for their district, so be it. They're doing their job, they're advocating for their communities. But we had talked about really looking at making a definition and kind of redefining special projects. I did want to talk to you about that because I'm hoping we can do that by the end of the year.
Sure. Mr. Keys is over here nodding his head because we had that conversation.
Yeah,
And I
many
think we've
times, I think we're
gotten
ready.
a bit of a backbone together. These are looking more uniform.
Yeah.
So yeah, by the end of the year to really have it institutionalized would be good. Commissioner Cavell.
I just wanna bring up the philosophical conversation that I don't know if we've fully grasped, or that's what our job is, I guess, of how we work with people's taxes to then redistribute, I know you like that word, Bob, redistribute it to people who we deem to be worthy of it. So a place like Pontiac or Royal Oak Township, or as we'll see, Fern Care, people that are uninsured, the vulnerable amongst us. I mean, yeah, who is it? All these finance things we're about to do, there's millions of dollars going to people that already have millions of dollars. So 22 grand for Pontiac, $10,000 for uninsured people. Okay, these are rounding errors.
I think that it is a good way for commissioners to elevate some of these things that are happening out in our communities that could use a boost. And we still have a pretty healthy pot of money. Partly because what we set aside for this year, some of the projects ended up being taken over by the executive branch and funded in a different way. So we still have a fair amount of funding available, which we might end up talking about a little later in this meeting. So I think you have a good point. We wanna make sure, and it is incumbent upon all of us to bring worthy projects to each other, right?
Yeah.
We've had some really good projects recently, and I think we could do more. Commissioner Rahman makes a good point. It is sort of skewed, but I think that's more related to us than it is to anything else. Who's actually, Charlie, you put in lots of these, and we really work with them to, by the time they get here, they make a lot of sense and they fit the guidelines that we're putting together, so that's the way the process is supposed to work.
Sure.
Good. Okay, anybody else on this or special projects in general? Okay, let's prompt the vote.
Yes.
I said try, no, I'm kidding.
Well,
No,
who's gonna
Marcia
do
did
with
it,
me?
Yeah, be yeas, 0 nays.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, next up, we have item 8F, partnership
Can I
with
come up
the.
No, you got morning.
Wait a minute. Yeah, partnership with Fern Care Free Clinic to increase healthcare availability for uninsured Oakland County residents. Motion from Commissioner Smith Charles, supported by Commissioner Rahman. I guess our commissioners are our presenters today.
Thank you, and we also have
Dan Martin.
Sure, his position at Fern Care. Hi, Dan. The executive director.
I got a request to speak.
So Fern Care provides services to patients without insurance at no cost, including primary care, vaccinations, medications, diagnostic lab services, and other health care in conjunction with partners. All new patients also meet with an insurance counselor to determine eligibility. This is a $10,000 request to allow Fern Care to open an additional clinic session. So Dan,
unless you'd like to say something.
Dan, I'd like you to speak to it.
It's not mental health.
Thanks, I'd be happy to. So again, my name is Dan Martin. I'm the Executive Director, and I have two of our board members in the room with you as well. I just want to recognize Barbara Winters, our Board President, and Cheryl Johnson's our Board Treasurer. So what FernCare does is provides primary care services to people without insurance at absolutely no cost to them. What we're seeing with the environment coming from a number of different ways is the number of uninsured in Oakland County continues to increase. And on the cusp of the Medicaid redetermination process, we're starting to see an even greater demand as people realize that they may lose their Medicaid coverage as well. So what this request covers, we currently are open 7 clinic sessions a month. This funding would add an 8th for the month and impact at least 80 patients between now and the end of the year. So this is about expanding our capacity to meet market demands, as well as increase the general quality of health in probably the most vulnerable population we have out there.
Okay,
Any questions?
we'll start with Commissioner Long.
Okay, thank you. And so I've done some research, because I have to, on the clinic, and I called this morning and got one of my answers. So my biggest concern, obviously, was I wanted to make sure it wasn't affiliated with Planned Parenthood in any way. I've called, I've called a couple different sources, so I've got 2 answers saying, yes, it's associated with Planned Parenthood, 2 answers saying, no, it is not. I called your facility, doing my homework as a county commissioner this morning, called you folks there. They assured me that it is not affiliated with Planned Parenthood, and they do not even do OB/GYN at that facility. So that's my question. I just as, in my belief, I don't think any tax dollars should go to Planned Parenthood, so I wanted to do my due diligence and research. So I'm a little, with a couple yeses and a couple nos, I'm a little up in the air now. I'm not sure I'm gonna support this right now, but that's not to mean I'm not gonna support it next week at the board meeting. I might have a little more questions that maybe they'll be answered. It's just primary care, right? No mental health either, right? Correct? Am I correct?
We do refer, we have a partner with Southfield Mental Health Associates that we refer our patients over to for counseling.
Okay.
So we do have partners fill that mental health, behavioral health role.
Okay, and so, not to belabor the point, so if you don't have OB/GYN, is there any, like, whoever I talked to today on the phone was excellent too, so that I appreciate that. And I'm all for helping uninsured and stuff. I'm just that one question's kind of bothering me. But so with the OB/GYN, if you don't have services, are you affiliated in any way with Planned Parenthood, like referrals or I just don't want anything to do with Planned Parenthood as a county.
No, I understand.
Morally, and for me, so I'm asking you that. I would like to support this. I might need another week, to call or talk to individually, which I've started doing, so I could vote intelligently on this $10,000. But do you refer to Planned Parenthood there or not?
We have a number of referrals that we would send people out to for OB/GYN care as well. On some of the referral sheets, Planned Parenthood is listed amongst others.
Okay.
To be completely honest, but our first tier of referral would be to another free clinic, which is not inclusive of Planned Parenthood, that offers OB/GYN care. I know, for example, for pregnancy tests, there's another clinic we refer to that's faith-based in Southfield. And so if you wanted to give me a call individually, I'd be happy to talk that through with you.
Okay, I would like that. Thank you. And I'm not saying, by next week I could change, but today I'm just a no because of that. I just want to clear up that. I think my fellow colleagues know we have to, and it's just because it's tax money, that's only my issue.
I appreciate the question,
But I do appreciate whoever answered the phone today. They were wonderful talking with me too, and I appreciate your candor. So thank you very much. And I am all for uninsured, helping people. So I don't want to come across that. I just need another week, and then I'll probably contact you personally. But thank you very much.
No worries. Yeah.
So can we be sure and get Commissioner Long contact information again?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
As long as it's
Done.
not.
In fact, Barbara in the room there has my cell phone number. Please share that and you can call me directly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner
Thank you.
Long. Anybody else have any comments? Commissioner Wiper?
I'm gonna make the same inquiry, so.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, let's go ahead and prompt the vote on the Ferndale Free Clinic. Oh, I had one other question. We can still go ahead and vote. This is a one-time deal. You're not gonna come back next year looking for another $10,000.
No, in fact, we've got additional funding to help carry us through from Metro Health Foundation for expansion of services as well. So no, this is a one-time ask that'll get us to the end of the year and what I anticipate to be a sharp increase before the market settles a bit.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you have 5 yeas, 2 nays.
All right, motion carries.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Martin.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Next up is item 8G, appropriation, American Rescue Plan Act local fiscal recovery funds to the Oakland County Youth Assistance Coordinating Council for Youth Assistance Programming. That's a mouthful. Motion from Commissioner Rahman, supported by Commissioner Wiper.
Commissioner Loops is in training all day,
the youth
and
assistant, yeah.
SISMA has a training. They are updating their bylaws. So if you have any questions, I can answer them. Okay,
No,
so
I'm trying not to do that.
originally the Board of Commissioners approved $10 million for school mental health programming, and there was some money left over. An oversight committee decided that they would like to reallocate $500,000 to youth assistance for programming, and Liz came up with a great proposal. $300,000 will be emergency needs, mental health support, skill building, and this is kind of carry on in 2021. The board approved $50,000 for those programs, and you have expenditure in your package. I think they're left with $89 as of now, or as of June or July. So this will be very helpful, and they were very frugal how they divided funding. So this will help. $175,000 will be for evidence-based curriculum and resources. And then remaining $25,000 will be for tutoring the youth assistance students enrolled in the program.
Okay, any questions?
We need your name and address for the record.
We're coming over for dinner.
Right, we'll start with Commissioner Wiper.
And just as everybody recalls, this is the one that got introduced at the last board meeting, and we are all co-sponsors.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, it's youth, I think the entire commission supports youth assistance.
And it will be also perfect timing for the beginning of the school year because youth assistance is in all Oakland County schools. So if they have, few weeks to start implementing or start preparing and then implementing in September.
Okay, anybody? Commissioner Charles? Cavell?
I think Marcia was first, didn't you say?
Doesn't matter, you go first and then I'll.
How much was left over in the school mental health ARPA pot?
$1.8 million.
And so this is 500.
Correct.
Cool. Thank you.
Commissioner Gershenson.
So what about the rest?
When I get the directions, I will.
Okay, so we still have a pot of that?
I believe so. During the caucus, when there was the remaining ARPA appropriation, there was $1 million for correspondence. So we, in theory, yeah, this will be, and then there's additional $345,000 that it's still for you to decide how to spend it.
Okay. Just clarify for me that 50,000?
So in 2021, and I believe I included it in the package, or it is included in the package as well. This was the immediate need, and it had all the emergency care money. It had partnership with schools money, and one of the items was 50,000 for youth assistance. So this was
We've already done.
correct. This is
This is an additional 5.
correct.
Okay, and there is still additional money. Now, would that go back to the committee to decide, or that goes back into the ARPA pot?
There, I think ARPA pot, or like the BOC ARPA pot.
Okay, thank you.
But the million is already for correspondence.
Got it, thanks. Thanks, Charlie.
Anyone else with questions?
Based down on that.
So again, this is a one-time deal.
Correct.
What kind of reporting is gonna be associated with this? It's a lot of money.
Correct.
How-
It will be quarterly report, so the youth assistance was doing reporting even for the $50,000, which is included now. Before somehow it was lost in translation between administration and us because, it was implemented not by Board of Commissioners, but right now we will be the keeper of that funding, and so Youth Assistance Council will be providing us quarterly reports, and it will be as a communication item, I would assume, on finance.
Okay, good. I'd like to see that because it's not a small amount of money and we do wanna make sure it's getting distributed and used.
Correct.
Right. Commissioner Rahman.
Thank you. Barbara, I appreciate the information. I just want to clarify, so the 1.8 million was from the first round of ARPA funding, right? Is that what we're talking about, where it first came from, or where?
So there was, the board decided to, to be precise, is a $10,150,000 to use for Oakland County mental health. 8,635 million was redistributed to the all schools. So there, I don't know if you recall, and we were getting reports, all school district and charter schools were able to apply for initial 175,000. If they match, county was giving them 350,000. So this is like, I don't know if you remember, there was a nonprofit also grant like that, and there was some money left over. So the oversight committee came back and decided if they want to do a phase 2 of that funding, and this is the recommendation. The phase 2 will be to, instead of going back to schools or create a new grant, it's very, board is supportive of the youth assistance program and idea, and it was decided that $500,000 would go to the youth assistance.
Yeah, I'm fully in support of it. I just wanted to understand exactly where the money is coming from. So
Correct. Yeah, if I believe with the nonprofit, they were even like 2 phases. There was still even money after phase second, so there was like phase 3 because we wanna utilize all the available funding to be used and not to just keep it.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions or comments on this item? Let's go ahead and prompt the vote.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you, Barbara.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Barbara.
You have 8 yeas and 0 nays.
Okay. That takes care of the department recommendations. Now we have Public Health and Safety Committee recommendations, item A, appropriation of American Rescue Plan Act local fiscal recovery funds for staffing modifications, position creation. I need a motion. Commissioner Smith Charles, supported by Commissioner Hoffman. Hi.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Morning.
We are here seeking your support for the resolution in front of you to create positions for the animal shelter and pet adoption center. Now, you may recall, and it's already been mentioned by public comment, that on April 1st of this year, we assumed cage cleaning responsibilities from the Sabre Building Services with the creation of 10 positions. The number of animals housed at the shelter has continued to grow since the easing of COVID, with an average of 167 dogs and 129 cats since January of this year. The positions that you created in April have proved to be inadequate to perform all the needed services at the shelter. The positions we're requesting today will ensure the health and well-being of the staff and the animals in our care, The cost is calculated to be $706,024 for fiscal year '24.
All right, I don't know.
All right, I need a motion. No, we already have a motion. Okay. Start with Commissioner Hoffman.
Question, why did we get rid of Sabre Building Services?
We were not pleased, or we weren't real happy with their service. They weren't doing the job up to the standards that the industry demands.
Well, to be fair, Commissioner, Barb Hankey, Director of Public Services, Sabre is not a pet cleaning crew. They are a janitorial service, and they provide those services to many buildings on the county campus, and they do that wonderfully. However, when this happened, it literally was COVID, started. And the next day, we got a call from the Sheriff's Department that due to the trying to protect the rest of the inmates at the jail, that they could no longer bring the inmates. So it was literally overnight, we found ourselves with no cleaning services. Sabre valiantly stepped up and agreed to fill that need until we could find something else. Well, it was almost 3 years that we had Sabre doing that. And again, they were not trained in that capacity. There was a lot of turnover. They just weren't trained to do that. And so we thought after 3 years, and I've talked with Under Sheriff Childs, and I hope he doesn't mind I'm calling him out, but they just don't have the trustees at the jail. They have trustee positions at the jail that they haven't been able to fill. And they've assured us that if that ever happens, they would be happy to supply us with those trustees, but we really don't see that anytime soon. And so we, felt that it was time for us to take back that responsibility, because it is our responsibility under the law. We are subject to audits and evaluations by MDARD to make sure that the facility is clean and up to date. And we just felt, again, that it was time in order to ensure that we had the A1, shelter that everyone expects, that we took that control of that cleaning back.
Right, thank you. To use prisoners in the jail, of course, they have to meet a certain criteria, nonviolent, that type of thing. And you're saying there aren't enough of them that would fill these positions?
Right. Well, the Under Sheriff is here if he wants to speak to that. I don't want to say anything.
Good afternoon. Yes, to answer your question, because of COVID and even since then, the judges are now been sentencing people to jail like we want, that we're afraid of, not that they're mad at. So we have a higher level of classification inmates.
True.
And there's just not enough safe ones to send out of the building. And honestly, we have to prioritize ourselves first to have trustees for cleaning in the kitchen with earmarked for cooking the food. So right now, we just don't have enough to send them out.
You need to arrest more nonviolent.
I'm not gonna make that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I will entertain.
I'm on, I think I
Let me see here.
requested.
Can I make a comment, Commissioner Markham?
Gwen's
Yes.
teaching us all these.
Wait a minute.
So Commissioner Griffithson wants to speak.
I know, so does Commissioner Long, and I
I
got
put my
lost.
button on.
Yes.
I'm getting
You're
good.
not- Oh, there we go, okay.
It might not work.
There you go.
I got him.
Yeah.
I got Commissioner Long, followed by Commissioner Rahman,
Can only
followed
touch
by
five
Commissioner
minutes.
Cavell, and then Commissioner Gershenson.
Okay, I'll try to make mine brief. So,
It's okay.
how many employees do you have now? Do you know how many employees there are now? I could look in my budget book, but,
Yeah. We have, I believe it's 31 full-time employees at this time.
okay. And I'm having a hard time swallowing this price tag personally. I see now the amendment, we're not using any ARPA money, correct?
Yeah, I wanna have that discussion when it
Okay.
gets to be my turn,
Okay.
but other people can.
So I'm all for the animal shelter and I don't want staff overworked. I don't want to be misconstrued in any way of that, but it's like $750,000 annually now adding on to the budget from the general fund for 10 employees. So that's like $70,000, if there's 10 positions, about $70,000 an employee equals to 706, a little less than, I'm doing math. was there a study that showed did this come from the study that we need 10 positions? Or I'm just kind of thinking, why didn't you start with 5 positions and then come back with 10? Or, this is really hard for me to swallow. I don't know if I'm gonna support this right now. This is a huge expense. I mean, this is $750,000 annually increased on staff for animals. I mean, that's big. It's not anything, it's not a small number. And I'm just a little concerned, and I know that I probably should come over there again. Haven't been over there and watch a half hour, a day's worth, and maybe I will between this and the board meeting. That would probably, because I don't want anyone I was a nurse, I don't want anyone overworked, I get it, But I'm just having a little problem with the 10 positions, that maybe we should have tried for a little less positions, and then they come back and you can come and say, oh my gosh, it's just as bad, I did 60 hours overtime. But to commit to $750,000 right away, I'm having a little hard time swallowing that number. So, I mean, you can respond to that.
We appreciate that, and actually, if you recall, we sort of took that approach. We started with 10, and we asked for,
in April.
so we said, we'll see how this works. That may not be enough, but we're gonna really give a yeoman's try, and unfortunately, that's on the backs of these, our valuable employees who, as you've already heard, one of them has already left. And we're
Right,
afraid
and I don't want
that
that.
continued workload, right? We have done the study, the study that was commissioned by the board. Dr. Pisano recommended more positions, and we also did a time study. We actually timed our cage cleaners to see how long it would take for them to clean a cage. We times that by the number of employees we have and the number of hours in the day to see how many available minutes we have. And then we also looked at how many cages that we have to see how many minutes we need. And it comes out that we need a minimum of 12 cage cleaners, which was exactly the number of trustees that we had. Because you have to remember, it is a 7-day week operation.
Right.
It doesn't matter that it's Christmas or Easter. The dogs have to be fed and they have to, the cages have to be cleaned. So, and then we have staff that need to be able to take time off, to have that self-care, to take care of themselves. And so we need to have, 10 sounds like a lot, but it's really not, because we have to spread them out over 7 days.
Right, you're always, there has to be someone there, I get that.
Yes.
And I am worried about the, burnout and stuff, and I really empathize with them, with their public, I don't wanna put that, because I was a nurse and it's the same thing, you're never closed, and it's, it's dogs instead of people, but it's the same, you're not closed, and I get that, I just having a hard time with the price tag on it, and I know I don't wanna come across that I don't care about them, I don't want them to get burned out and quit, I get it, but I'm gonna hear what everyone else says, but that's it, my comments for now, thank you, and questions.
I have Commissioner Rahman, followed by Commissioner Cavell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm actually gonna echo a lot of what my fellow Commissioner Long has said too. We certainly appreciate everything you guys do, and we're all, I think, collectively in for the welfare of the animals. Nobody wants anybody to suffer in this. Where I struggle a little bit is, I know the study was commissioned, and then, Sabre didn't work, and then we switched this over. Per the study, what was the initial recommendation? You said 12, if I heard you correctly? 12 people that?
Dr. Pisano's study recommended an additional 15 or 16 employees in the shelter.
So when we approved the 10 a couple months ago, as you'd mentioned, it was just kind of, let's try 50%, see how it goes, and then go for the other 50? I guess, was that the thought process, or?
When the 10 were approved, we said, we got together and we said, we're gonna do our very best. But as has already been stated, to use 10 people 7 days a week, it just did not equate to what our needs presented.
Understood.
And I'll take, full responsibility for that. Bob kept saying it's not gonna be enough, it's not gonna be enough. But I took Commissioner Long's sort of approach to say, well, let's start with 10 and see, because now that they're going to be our employees. But, again, running a facility that's 7 days a week is much different. And having to spread those employees out over 7 days, it's not really 10 employees, it's about 7 employees a day. And then again, they are eligible for time off, so if someone takes time off, that means, you've got a hole. And so you've got to sort of, backfill that. So That was the approach that we took, and it's just not meeting the needs. As you heard, we're running up a lot of overtime, which overtime is one thing, but people are attached to that overtime.
So if we have 10 and we're adding 10, even with people off, is that how we're getting to that 17? Is that kind of the math we're doing here? Or?
If we add 10 more employees with this resolution, we will then have an 11 or 12-person crew every day to clean the shelter.
Okay, which is exactly what we need.
Which is exactly what we've had for the last, umpteen years.
Okay. So part of my thought too is there an option to maybe, again, increase it incrementally? If it's an easier pill to swallow instead of $750,000, but maybe that doesn't necessarily put us any better than where we are right now. It's just another thought, I don't know. Because to Commissioner Long's point, it is quite a bit of money. I'm assuming the 10 people we've already approved is the same dollar figure of 700 and some thousand?
Well, these positions wouldn't start until October 1st. So they're a little bit more because it built in the 3% increase. So the other 10 positions were a little less.
Okay.
For that reason.
Got it. And then one last comment I just wanted to make, and maybe Commissioner Long touched on this too, with ARPA funding. I don't know, and Commissioner Markham, maybe you can help me too. Are there any restrictions? Does the ARPA part of it come into play? And is there any issues with potentially opening the door? I'm all about supporting, the folks here. But if tomorrow there's another department that wants to come in and now we have staffing, because the problem with ARPA is it's limited funding, right? And once that's exhausted, that's exhausted. If it's not sustainable, do we open the door to other departments?
And so Commissioner Robin, just to speak to that, and I know Commissioner Markham and Gershenson have spoken with Chair Woodward as well, so if, please feel free to correct me. But certainly this is an allowable ARPA expense, that's how it was submitted to us, and it has been, approved in that sense. But through talking with the Executive's Office and Management and Budget, they've provided an updated Schedule A for our budget amendment, that instead of taking it out of ARPA, which to the point you were making would require certain reporting and again, still allowable, but would be harder to do. We will instead just assign it out of the general fund. And so that budget amendment is in your packet. It leads all the way up until 2026. And certainly if you have any questions, we can answer that. But if there is a motion and there's a second and it's approved, instead of going from the ARPA funding that was even described by Barbara Winter earlier, it would be out of the general funds.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike, because we didn't even know that it had all sort of just transpired in the last several minutes. So so thank you.
Well, what I will say, and then I'll call on Commissioner Cavell next. I got you on my list here. Are you done, Commissioner?
Yes, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, what I will say is, from a philosophical point of view, we don't want to use ARPA funding for long-term things, not this year and then next year and then next year, because that money's not going to be there. So from just a perspective of what ARPA was for and what your needs are, they don't necessarily match up. I think everybody understands the need. I'm not going to speak for everybody, but the study's been done. We've been trying to work this. You've tried SABRE, you've tried the trustees. We all understand why trustees don't work anymore as an option. So we feel like it's a better proposal to find a way to pay for this out of the county budget. We feel like it's a real need. I mean, how did you word it? The top animal shelter or whatever. We're trying to be the example, and we have almost 300 animals right now over there. I mean,
276 this morning.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, if I could take them all, I would.
I can arrange that.
No, I got a dog and a cat.
Drive them right on the way home.
More room.
We don't need put them in the car on the way home.
Anyway, that's kind of the thinking, is we really would like to see this as part of the ongoing budget and meet your needs that way, and not draw from ARPA funding and then next year be going, well, what are we gonna do now, right? So that's why there is an amendment under me to make that proposal, okay? But we're not on the amendment yet, so. Commissioner Cavell is next.
I just wanna bring up that these people are gonna be getting paid $38,000 a year, and they're gonna be like union jobs and representative stuff. And here we are arguing about $700,000, but we're also going to have IT come in, which has not to exceed contracts of $95 million. Like, do you think the Motorola sales rep that works with IT is like chilling off of 40 grand? Or the business navigator, whatever the hell we just supported, they make 130 plus benefits. And we're arguing about 700, and those are 3 people each, right? And then the CIO, right, salary cap is loosened, so they're gonna make over 200K plus benefit. You know what I mean? So like we're arguing about 700K for animal shelter. I get it. And it's a new pill to swallow because we've been able to benefit from misusing people that have been in jail forever. But like, you know, who and what is worthy?
Are you finished, Commissioner?
Yes.
Thank you. Oh, I see our chair has arrived.
Is it yours?
I have Commissioner Gershenson and then Commissioner Hoffman.
Well, thank you. Just for a little background, a few years ago, I chaired a committee to look into the animal shelter because we were getting public comment from a lot of animal advocates that were not happy with what was going on there. So the committee consisted of members from the animal shelter, members from the animal welfare community, lots of different representation. And it was a pretty feisty committee. It was actually quite hostile at times. It was very difficult to maneuver, but one of the decisions we made was nobody knows, we can't get to an agreement here, so let's bring in an outside assessor. And that is what we did. And she made a list of recommendations. And I have to say that Bob and Barb took the time a couple of days ago to go through that 127 point assessment, and I'm blown away to say how many have been achieved. And the goal of this group was always to make our animal shelter state of the art, which it wasn't. But I mean, it's just a gorgeous facility. We wanted to be leaders in the animal welfare community. So we are moving forward on all of those recommendations. The ones we're not were actually more staffing positions that had to do with vets specifically and vet techs. These are more the operational piece, this is more the operational piece to keep the shelter open more and to keep it running and to keep it clean, which are mandated by the state, I believe. So I get it, it's hard, it's the first time in a long time we've even considered extra positions for a department. But I do support it, I think it's needed, and I welcome everybody to go over there, as I've asked we used to actually meet over there, so it could become a reality to us and it's not just this entity on our campus, so.
Okay. Commissioner Hoffman?
I know you mentioned there's 296 cats and dogs that go through there a month. What's the average you have per day? Do you ever figure that out, or the month, just, or the day probably?
It's up near 300 per day now.
It's about 300?
Almost 300. Today, 276. We just got done with our Bristol Foundation where some animals were moved out. Our Bristol Foundation, they paid part of the adoption fees, but almost 300 a day is the average.
Are there times that are more busy than others? I don't know why that would be, but.
Used to be, Commissioner, that the summer was crazy, and as we headed into the colder months, it slowed down, and that has not been the case the last couple of years.
All right, thank
you. The end of COVID brought more animals into the shelter than I think anybody ever imagined would happen.
And this is not unique to Oakland County. This is a phenomenon that's happening all over the state. Shelters are at capacity, and quite frankly, there are other options, but no one wants to talk about those options. Yeah. And there was actually a resolution in 13 that the board approved that provided us with that option that said, if the shelter is at capacity, you could consider this other option, which is euthanasia. But I don't think any of us want to go there. We're committed to being a no-kill shelter, to being an open admissions shelter to service the residents of Oakland County. But if we don't have the staff to service 300 animals a day, then we may not be able to keep 300 animals a day at the shelter.
Thank you.
Commissioner Rahman?
So one quick question that I just had, is there any option to transport these animals? And I don't know,
Transfer them
to another facility, or if there's, I don't know. how to
We have a
say-
robust network of rescues and other facilities that we use as often as possible, but like Barb just said, this problem, if you will, is not just in Oakland County, it's everywhere. Everybody's filled up.
I have Commissioner Smith Charles. Would you guys like put your requests on the computer so I can go in order?
I appreciate your reporting today. I give the shirt off my back to pets who are in need of homes. Not that that would be helpful to them. And ironically, I do have on my Boston Terrier shirt today.
I know, that's what I'm saying. I saw it.
My dog.
I said you looked at the agenda real good today.
But there was something that came up in my talk with the person, feels like ages ago when I first got on this board. And we were talking and I was like, what's the rationale? Because I was like, yeah, I would like to round up, like my goal of being a benefactor one day was to round up all the cats, buy like a bunch of property, let them live out in the wild as feral cats, but they would have been fixed and happy outside. Because apparently once they're feral, it's no really rehabilitating them for living inside.
Right.
So what do we have a plan of attack in the next 5 years or so where we can, I hate to say fix and flip, but it certainly feels like fixing and flipping the pets.
Actually, we have a very robust TNR, it's called Trap, Neuter, and Return Program at the shelter.
Yes.
And people bring us their feral cats all the time, and we spay or neuter them, and then they are returned back into their natural habitat.
Because I know I have a family member in Wisconsin whose cat probably has 100 kittens on a given year. And it's just so frustrating to me. But they're always talking about the impact of how much it costs to get these pets fixed and things like that. So if we are, and I can do more, I can share it more on social media if we already have the medium, but I would love to get that word out because
We do.
I'll round up, I go to Myers and 8 Mile, there's like feral cat city, and round them up and bring them and get them fixed and then they can take care of the mice.
Put
I mean,
gloves
it's like a
on.
natural.
Now,
Put
we
gloves
have,
on.
we have
I've
an
tried to pick
appointment
up a pair.
schedule, people can't just, and as Commissioner Gershenson kind of pointed out, we also have some staff shortage when it comes to our veterinary staff too. And they're the ones involved in the TNR program, more so than our operational staff. So, but we do have a very robust program.
My personal general fund is there for you all, but speaking as a board member, I would really like to see us continue to lead the way. I know that might not have been our goal, but certainly as best practices. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I have Commissioner Cavell, followed by Commissioner Woodward, and then Commissioner Hoffman.
This is just really actually kind of to ask Chair Woodward, but Jim Ellison was here yesterday and he's got 23 animals. Doesn't his wife run the Royal Oak Animal Shelter?
Yes.
I mean, illuminate us as to like the crisis around us about animals, cause right, Jim's your neighbor and stuff.
Okay, I'll speak to the Ellison household. I've had to share my plate with the zoo.
The zoo.
No, there is, I mean, there's no question. There's a number of factors. I think, there's actually an education component that people say, I can take these animals. Mr. Gadd mentioned, come to the animal shelter and we'd love to give you an animal. And frankly, the last 3 people one who was going there to kind of sign up to volunteer left with an animal. And unfortunately, my family has dodged that because we got 2 teenagers and that's enough animals in my house. But it does open this bigger question, from a legal perspective, and I apologize for missing the very beginning of another committee meeting, that we are legally obligated to take in dogs. are we
We are
legally obligated?
legally obligated to take stray dogs. to the
Stray
farm,
dogs,
so,
exactly. And cats are different now, I mean,
yes. Cats
are not a legally required
No,
thing.
there is no law pertaining to.
That requires us to be able.
And as a result of that, Commissioner, we do have more restrictions on the number of cats we bring into our building. Most of our cats in the building right now are there on legal status. They were part of hoarding situations that we're holding for court cases. But if average Joe citizen wanted to give up their cat, we would put them on a list, and when we have room or we have the staffing, then we would take it. Not the same for dogs.
Right, and that's a policy question that we've made, and I mean, I was here when we built, and this is arguably the newest facility on the campus. It's a beautiful facility. We built it in larger capacity than the previous, and Mr. Gatt was like center of that when it was happening. I'm a believer that you could have doubled the size of what we were built, and we will fill it. I mean, it'll be a self-fulfilling prophecy because of whether people make a decision that I can handle this and then I can't handle this, and I need to unload this somewhere, and people, I think, frankly, trying to do it responsibly instead of just like dropping an animal on the side of the road. So a policy question, I mean, and the decision that's been made to date is that we are going to take in as many cats as possible, and I think Mr. Gatt highlighted that particularly those for legal proceedings, that we have an obligation from a public safety justice perspective to address that. But we made the decision, we're gonna take in cats, we're gonna take in dogs. Now, what's the labor requirement to be able to do that? We did that assessment that said like, this is where we need to be. We try, we've looked at trying to achieve it at the lowest cost possible. We've tried to contract out for these services. We relied on other things. I'll take some issue about taking advantage of people because I happen to know people who were in jail for things that, I think they shouldn't have done. And we're happy as a clan to be able to go and work in the animal shelter and get out of the jail for a while before they had to finish the rest of their evening there. But that's not an option, frankly. I mean, our judicial system that says those individuals that are really not harmful to society, I'd rather have them, frankly, tethered at home than in jail and not having to incur those costs. So your pool of support to be able to do this is less. We need more labor. And so it comes up, and this is where we're gonna, turn to you and the department, everyone who's involved, like what is the optimal level of staffing that's necessary to achieve the objective? Clean cages, quality operation, flexibility to possibly have more evening hour activities. The reality is if I'm gonna go out and adopt a dog, which I'm not doing, finding the time 9 to 5 is, I don't even know how that would even happen. So to be able to have the flexibility, if your staff is at capacity, I know particularly these staff positions, we're at capacity, it's having to rely on overtime, God forbid someone gets sick, but you can only stretch that out so long. We see that in other departments where it's just like you break the physical capacity of workers to be able to do that. So we have to figure out what that number is. Is it 10? I think we're trying to figure it out. I love the idea, honestly, that we privatize some of this stuff. That didn't work. And so we're bringing it in-house. And I'm not generally a big believer in privatization. So this is a case study that's now gonna be the feather in my cap, or a feather in the cap. But how we pay for this, and we have to be very intentional on how we pay for this long-term. Because we're gonna have to pull from, some source, reallocate resources or generate new additional revenue. And I know that has been a part of a conversation. And what I want this committee to be serious about, in short order, that really the one that we control the most of is dog licensing fees. So there's dog licensing fees that, we can raise some revenue there to help pay for this, short-term, long-term. Increasing investment to advanced compliance. Someone walked by my street, this is a dog that happens to bite people. I don't even understand how this dog's still under this person's control. It's not licensed, didn't know they were supposed to be licensed. By law, they're required to be licensed. And so how do we get more compliance, which in effect will actually bring in more revenue to be able to support this operation. It's not gonna pay for the full cost, like, there's no panacea, like, the revenue's not enough to offset 100% of the cost, but it helps us get to a point where we're more sustainable in that way. And that, from a fiscal responsibility perspective, this committee and from an oversight, we need to be looking at that. And then obviously relying on the team on the front lines, like, how do we operationalize this to do this best? Do we need to, on the CAT side, like, is there a revenue on that space? I think where is like, we get no revenue for that. I don't know, in a hoarding case, is there a way to put an assessment on those situations on the property where we got, I don't even know if that's ever been pursued but if we are doing all the lodging and all the costs there, what is there cost recovery in that? Those are the types of things that we just need to be thinking through. And I think over the budget, I know I've talked to the chair, that there's intentionality to be able to do that. So, I fully support it. I've talked to union leadership that represents, I get it. We've got to add staff capacity, the order, the sequencing, monitoring that are all things that we need to do over the next fiscal year, this budget, to finance them and going forward. But I'm gonna go on record, I'm supportive of raising fees. No one wants to raise fees. We're gonna raise fees for the purpose of paying for the positions that has been determined are necessary for our operation. And so what's the rate to be able to do that? What are other ways we can do, increase compliance? Do we have latitude? Make the penalty for not being licensed really expensive to encourage compliance, because that will bring in more revenue. I think all of those things, and working with the respective local communities to, ideally to do this together. All right, my speech is done.
It's okay. I can't believe Gwen didn't say, come on, we got our time.
Penny's not running this meeting.
I've been doing good though.
Yeah, she's keeping us on time.
Okay, so I have Commissioner Hoffman next.
I'm good.
You're good? And
Moving right
Commissioner
along.
Whitebird, are you raising your hand?
I'm good.
Anybody else? Yeah, I wanna see this happen. I wanna see you get the positions that you need. I don't wanna have it be paid for out of ARPA. I want us to figure out between now and the budget, as we go through this process here in the next few weeks, how's that gonna happen? But we have a healthy budget this year. We think there's room in it. We just need to figure out how to do that. And I got my dog out of animal control. It's been 3 years now. He was a almost pandemic dog. His personality's a little messed up in the head because the first year and a half, those pandemic dogs had no socialization, right? So we're still working on that, but I think you guys do a great job. If I could take more, I would, but I can't.
We still need a motion on the amendment.
We need a motion on the amendment. Let me read the amendment.
Just say no ARPA funding. Yeah. Deleting. General purpose, general fund. You have to go back to your main screen to find your amendment.
So it says to approve the creation of 9 GFGP FTE animal shelter attendant positions and 1 GFGP FTE animal control shelter leader position in the Animal Control Administration Unit using general fund, general purpose funds, and to amend the FY 23 to 26 budgets as detailed in Amendment A, in Attachment A, okay? Are you moving that?
Yeah.
Okay, and supported by Commissioner Hoffman. All right. Commissioner Woodward.
I just want to make clarity what was to do. This will pull from general fund for the current budget that we're in. So from the time we create these positions to September 30th. So if there's people that we can hire into these jobs, we can do it sooner rather than later. And it basically lays out the intent that we're going to fund these things permanently going forward. So that all of you and the budget team are gonna have to be working like, where's the revenue to help pay for this? We don't wanna just be pulling exclusively from fund balance. We might have to pull from fund balance initially to be able to get to a point that we can sustainably maintain these positions going forward. So we got a little bridge, short term, you all have work to do.
Okay, Commissioner Rahman.
Through the chair to Dave, I like your idea of licensing fees, you know, and I don't know what's involved to potentially make that happen, if that initiates here, if that initiates, you know, with your department. I think it's a great idea, right, at least for short term, and to your point, it's not a panacea, it's not gonna cover us fully. But at least it's some additional funding to bridge that gap, so I'm fully in support of it.
Like on Medea, the license fee queen, as a you want to speak to, like, what are the license, what's the license fee for a dog today?
Actually, I'll let Bob talk because he's.
A spayed and neuter dog is $15. And the compliance rate in Oakland County is about 20%. That means 80% of the people do not buy a license. That's the same throughout the whole United States, though.
Wow.
And maybe there's I mean, we can have a specific conversation on fees, but in the budget, I mean, we did increase it recently to bring in some revenue. We've had to add staff, but to go a little bit higher. And I think I think we want to look across the operation, but when you're running an animal shelter at this level and this capacity, it costs more to operate, period. Do we have the latitude to say, if your dog is not licensed, there's a $100 penalty or something? Do we have the ability to?
The board set the fees, and delinquent fee is what we call it, is instead of $15, it's $40.
So
Any license bought after June 1st is $40. All licenses are $40.
So I think that there's an avenue. I'm gonna spitball here. If we added $10 to the license fee,
to 25.
how much does that generate?
We're gonna sell about 40,000 licenses this year.
So that's $400,000.
If we're lucky, it's gonna be in the high 30s.
Look at that.
There you go, there's half
So
of
that's,
it.
that's why, that's why, so hi everyone, Vidya Tarek, Deputy County Executive. And that's why I think like, there is opportunity for us to help, I don't think we can cover the full costs through the licensing fee, but there are many opportunities. You have to think about this. This is an inflow and an outflow issue, right? So we need the resources to take care of the dogs that are in our facility, but also create more opportunities for them to leave the facility. When Barb and I were speaking, he was telling us that there was a time there were 50 dogs in our facility. I mean, that's like easy breezy, right? But then the pandemic happened and now we have, close to 300 animals, as you heard.
That's a big difference.
So our goal really is with this staffing is also to help plan for increased exit of the animals. Because you have to remember, if an animal is in the shelter for a long time, it becomes very hard to manage. And that also impacts the safety of our staff.
Is there a dollar figure that you think would be too high, that people couldn't afford?
That's hard to say, right? Because of the different makeups of the communities.
Right.
So we do have to be careful about that, raising it too high and decreasing our rate of return at some point. So I think it's gonna be a delicate balance that we'll have to figure out.
And maybe there are philanthropic organizations out there that might help somebody with their first license or that kind of thing.
And we do provide discounts for seniors and other things, and there's occasions when they get there, if they come and Bob has run a clinic for several Tuesdays over the past year to encourage folks to come in and get their vaccinations. They get their vaccination, they get their license.
We waive all the delinquent fees on Tuesdays, and we give them a free vaccination, just to give them the incentive, if you will. I think, we've talked about this many times among staff. If there was a more robust advertising program, like Commissioner Woodward said, some people don't even know they need a license, or at least they say so. If there was a more robust advertising campaign, starting in January, buy your dog license. We were talking with the PR staff at the county, and I haven't even told Barb this yet, but we're talking about wrapping our vans with a message on it that says, buying a license is the law, something like that. So there are ways that we can inspire more people, but there's cost involved in inspiring those people.
We had our communications
I know.
department
That's
here
good. The rap's
yesterday
good.
talking about all the great things they can do for the whole county.
Mhm.
And
The rap's a good idea
so
on the
I think
trucks.
we really, that's a great idea.
On
We
the
should be
trucks,
beefing up
yeah.
that communication.
The ramps are
The
a good
only-
idea on the trucks.
The only thing I'll say is like, there's two things going on here, right? We have to take this ship home, but also the ship has holes in it. So we have to do both at the same time. And that's why, that's why the executive team has been working closely with you all to figure out how we can peg those holes and move the ship at the same time. And, we are willing to do what it takes to fill these positions. So I'll just kind of take.
So I have a bunch more people who have questions. I'll start with Commissioner Hoffman.
Supposed to be questions on the amendment.
On the amendment.
Let's do it, Jermaine. Let's just vote on the amendment. Let him do
I
that.
just wanna make a comment about what somebody said about
Robert's rules of order.
raising the license fee for those who comply. Punish them
I know, I
for
was
people who
thinking
don't comply.
I know, I
I
know
am
that.
absolutely opposed to raising the fee on the hand.
For the
regular
compliance.
Isn't
license.
that the eternal positive rights for negative rights?
Yeah, I get it. I knew that was someone was.
I think that's just getting into the weeds, I will say that.
Right.
We will figure those pieces out. We're not gonna do anything
I
that
get
this
it, though.
table
It's
is
like you're
not
compliant, so you're-
with us on. So I think what we need to do right now is peg those holes. And I think that's what the amendment's about. And then we can figure out how we're gonna move the ship.
True, I agree.
So I'll hand you all an or,
Right.
once we have.
Right, yeah, that's on the, yeah.
All right,
I want someone holding a gun.
so I have Commissioner Hoffman had his chance. Anybody else have any questions or comments on the amendment?
Offer them out.
Okay, then let's prompt the vote, please.
Come up on this.
So the amendment.
This is on the amendment.
So much anticipation.
Right?
Give me my button.
System timed out.
I wonder why.
Feels good.
Manufacturing engineer in me liked the fact that you did an industrial engineering time study to really figure out what you really needed. That speaks to me.
Yeah, 8 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay, motion carries on the amendment, so let's go back to the main motion as amended. Please prompt the vote, yes,
Yeah,
I'm
we're
sorry.
done. We talked enough, right?
And 8 yeas, 0 nays.
You talked
Thank
me into
you,
it,
motion
guys.
carries, so
They
go
talked me
hire
into
some
it.
people
Thank you
and
very much.
talk to us about how
Talked
we're
me
gonna pay
into it.
for
It's a
it.
big price tag, but I gotta think of the people.
Thank you, we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
We appreciate what you do over there. It's really
Aye.
an emotional
Have a good
job
rest of the day.
and we
And
appreciate
you're all invited to come over
Yeah.
anytime, unannounced, just walk on over.
the next thing.
Don't say that.
I think, but
Five kids.
I'll leave with something maybe.
I think you have to give
Wish they weren't all pits.
kitten to really get it trained.
Oh, yeah,
right.
ours was like a dog. When we got one as a kitten, the kids.
Thank you. Okay, next up, moving right along, the item 10A, reissuance of Series 2018 bonds to the Detroit Skating Club Incorporated Project, City of Bloomfield Hills.
I'll move it.
Moved by Commissioner Smith Charles, supported by Commissioner Long. We have Kathy Rassigan with us.
Do we need to hear? Maybe Angela does, but,
Really, Bob.
Bob and Angela.
Hi Kathy, you wanna just kind of run through this real
We
quick for
had
us?
this in the other meeting.
Sure, yep. So first off, we were at EDI prior to this morning. And so I thank the commissioners on finance for entertaining our action as well. The EDC of Oakland County did a revenue bond, the issuance to Detroit Skating Club back in 2018. And their original note with their bank was for 5 years. That 5 years is coming due. And because they have to do a new note, still with Bank of Ann Arbor, it technically becomes a reissuance of that bond. So there's no new money going out. No budget impact to the county. It does not involve the full faith and credit of the county. The EDC is merely the issuer. But we do have to go through the motion of a public hearing on it to comply with IRS rules and the Public Act.
Okay, any questions?
Not for me.
Seeing none, let's prompt the vote, please.
We have three of 8 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay, motion carries. Thanks very much. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Next up, item 10B, Courthouse Auditorium Air Handling Units 10 and 11 Replacement Project, moved by Commissioner Rahman, supported by Commissioner Long. We have Joe Murphy on screen. Good afternoon again.
Good afternoon. We were there this morning for ED&I, and some of the commissioners did get to participate in the show and tell, so that was hopefully very informative. Today, I'm here the next process to go over a project that was identified in our CIP to replace 2 aging, inefficient air handler units that impact the courthouse auditorium general business area and hallways. The project was competitively bid. The total project cost is $584,485 with $456,000 for materials and installation. So the low responsible bidder, which was Limbach Company out of Pontiac. We do have a 20% contingency in there and a 5% inflationary contingency as well. And that being said, I can answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Does anybody on the commission have a question? Commissioner Cavell.
Hey, Joe, how much is in the CIP? I know, because we're gonna be talking about that in the budget stuff, so how much did you have for this fiscal year?
For this fiscal year, we had 2 big projects on the maintenance side that kind of fall under my house. It was this project, I think, was set aside of $600,000 for this type of work and mechanical equipment. And then we have one that will be coming next month for the energy management system, which is usually ongoing. So that's another $500,000. But with Jason Warner's group, they did have some other projects on that side at various amounts that they brought forward through the year.
Okay.
And I can get you that exact number if you'd like of what was, I've got my book here somewhere I could grab.
Yeah, it's not too inconvenient, or you could email it to me if it'll take you a minute.
Sure, I can email that to you for 2023.
Yeah.
Okay.
How much would be carried over, if you don't mind? That's the big thing to know.
I think we carried over like 3 projects that we weren't getting to on the maintenance side, and then I'd have to get with Jason to get any projects that they might have carried over as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Murphy? If not, let's please prompt the vote.
Okay, that's back to our agenda.
I'm sure you have 8 yeas, 0 nays.
Excellent. Okay, that.
So just to clarify, Commissioner, you'd like to see what the total CIP was and what was going to be carried over to the next year, correct?
Thank you, yeah.
Okay, we'll work on it. Jason is on vacation today, otherwise he'd probably be on here with me to answer that question right away for you. So hopefully early next week, I should be able to get that over to you.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay. So that ends Economic Development Infrastructure Committee recommendations. At this time, we have scheduled a closed session. So I will entertain a motion to go into closed session for the purpose of consulting with attorneys regarding trial or settlement strategy in the case of Conahan James versus Oakland County et al. Corporation Counsel File number 2020-1345. Motion by Commissioner Long, supported by Commissioner Weipert.
Should go for meetings act now.
I saw you guys
So-
patiently waiting out for the call.
Prompt the vote,
Well,
please,
waiting
yes.
anyway.
Well, we're somewhat similar time for one, which is good.
I showed up late too.
Yeah.
So we got it. Lunch, so that would be good.
You're getting lunch.
We're getting lunch between, so that would be good. Get done, have
Yes.
it.
Yes,
And so for commissioners' information, yes, lunch is gonna be coming shortly here. I'll get the exact time for you. But after the closed session, we'll probably do a short recess. Not even a short recess, quite a long recess, so that you all
for the
have
next
lunch, bathroom breaks, all that good stuff. And then we'll go into the budget hearing.
Okay,
You're officially in closed
There we go. We're being recorded now. So I will entertain a motion that the Corporation Council be authorized to proceed in accordance with the directives discussed in the closed session.
I'll make that motion.
Commissioner Wiper, supported by Commissioner Rahman. Let's prompt the vote.
Easy one. You probably say recess the meeting, right? We can recess and then she can make it 10 minutes again.
Madam Chair, you have 8 yeas, 0 nays.
Excellent. Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen, and Nicole.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you for waiting for so long for us.
Yeah.
See you all.
You probably got all your email read while you were.
Right. Yeah, you have no excuse to not have any reply back to people today while you were waiting, right?
All right. I am going to call the Finance Committee meeting in recess. We will have lunch and we will return at 1:00.
All right, thank you. Yeah, you got a recess.
Yeah, so like 1:45.